Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast, brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. This is Joe Grumbine here, your host, and I am back with Richard Mccuen, Dr. Q, he calls himself, and I'll call him that as well. Richard, welcome to the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, sir. Thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. And you know, I'm going to let on a little secret. We just got through having a great conversation about progress and about goals and about self-realization and about man, we get into some deep conversations, and I think it's important to just have the conversation, not record everything, because you know you can get yourself to a different place sometimes when the camera's not on and have more real breakthroughs. And then later on, once we get our message honed down, then we put it on camera. But that's what's great is, you know, Richard, you and I have known each other here for over a year, actually almost a couple of years, but we really haven't gotten to know each other till about a month ago.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, I feel like I've been friends with you forever, and it's we're walking down a pretty multi-layered journey here.
Oh, yes, sir. It's amazing. And all it takes is just, you know, opening up and being yourself, you know, and that's pretty much what I've, you know, had to do was dig deep within myself, because I've always been pretty much a private person, you know, like keep my circle small, you know, just because of things that I've had to deal with, you know, growing up and stuff, you know, it's how it shaped me. So I really wouldn't open up to you know, to say, you know, this bothered me or what, you know, that's, you know, and then being the Marine on top of that, you bury that more in the shell, and you
Right.
So
you got to be the superhero all the time.
Yeah. So it's like how I ended up coming out and putting the program out, and it's starting to unwind, was somebody asked me a question, is how I dealt with everything, you know, and what I told her was, at the time I had, you know, a girlfriend, was, you know, this is a few years ago, and she had her son's daughter, and she'd always come over, you know, and she'd babysit her. Well, she asked me, you know, because she saw what happened to my head. I had stitches and stuff, and she's like, "What happened to you?" Well, I couldn't have a conversation like you and I could have, you know, as an adult, you know. So I had to break. I couldn't, you know, be that emotional adult, you know, in conversation. I had to break it down to her level, you know. So I had to be that 3-year-old, you know, and have that conversation. And it's the tone, you know, pretty much breaking it down to her is a simple thing, is, you know, this was just something that happened to me, but I'm okay. So I think that's the level that really is about healing, is how do you express that to somebody else that has gone through worse than you? You know, is you have to break it down to that 3-year-old tone, is, you know, when you talk to yourself, is, you know, hey, chill, you know, you're going to be okay, you know, is tell yourself what happened. And then, you know, that's pretty much how it started to get me to come out of my shell, is because I couldn't be in that rage and, like, you know, against the world in that Marine mode with everything, you know, with my axe in my hand, looking for, you know, who did this to me.
Right. That'll burn you up pretty quick.
Yeah, mentally it'll kill you. And I just said, you know what? That's where I put myself in the program, is I'm on my knees in the backyard, you know, I can't even support myself on my hands and knees, you know. So I had to be that 3-year-old in mentality to tell myself it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. You know, you can push yourself out of this. And it just turned into push-ups, and it went from 1 to 1, and slowly that built the emotional level to be able to come out, to express, to be able to talk about you know, in motion in the workout with what happened in detail, you know, as far as therapy. So, because if I go to the gym, I don't think of it as I'm going to a gym to go work out. It's pretty much, that's my church, you know.
Yeah.
I put my headphones on, I don't engage anybody, I go in there to heal. That's pretty much what everybody does in the fitness world, in any gym, is they go to a gym to look better, feel better, you know. So why not call it church, you know? And church could be anywhere, you know.
Sure.
God's everywhere, so why do you have to go to a building just to say hi to God?
Right, absolutely. I've always said that.
So that mentality's really resonated with a lot of other people, and it's okay. So I'm starting to break down in a training manual of the program, just not consistent of 1,000 push-ups, but it's that build to the 1,000. You know, it like you're doing 100 push-ups right now, Joe. You were only doing, you know, maybe 1 or 2 when you started. You know,
Right.
100 was way out of your mental wheelhouse that was capable of you achieving. Now
Exactly.
achievable, so it's like not on your mind. So
Exactly.
that's pretty much the mentality of breaking it down in the training manual, as far as how can it help each and every individual. They break it down themselves, because they're the ones that have to do it. You know, you have to it's accountability. So you hold yourself accountable to say that I'm going to change. And then you build that change within your accountability. So it's not, Joe, you got to do 1,000 push-ups today.
Right.
Joe has to figure out his, you know, formula so that he can achieve that. Why? Because each and every person has that ability.
Well, and sometimes too, it's about the process of mixing it up. So, you know, in listening to your direction, I've tried a few different things, and you know, tried smaller groupings, larger groupings, and just different little modes. And I think I'm carving out my niche of growth, where my mind and my body are responding. Everybody's different. There isn't one answer for everybody. All you can share is what works with you. And it's kind of interesting, because like with making natural holistic remedies like I do, people say, well, what do I need to take for this? What dosage should I take? And I was like, I can't tell you that. Number one, I'm not a doctor. I don't have any medical training whatsoever. I have a lifetime of experience working with these plants, and that's what that experience tells me, is you got to try it, and you got to find your place where it works best for you. That means you got to get mindful in yourself, and you got to go and pay attention to what you're doing for you, because what worked for me might not work at all for you, or it might work halfway. It might even have a backwards effect. You know, sometimes what makes me feel energetic might put you to sleep, and we don't know. It's not the herb's fault. It's how it interacts with your chemistry today. And I think this exercise regime, which is a huge understatement, it's a whole mind and body change regime, is what it really is. It requires the participant to be mindful of what they're doing and what they want and how they want to accomplish it. Some people are like, well, it doesn't matter if I do one more a day, I'll get there eventually. And it might take them 2 years to get there, 3 years to get there. If you did one more every day, and you did this every day, it would take you 3 years to get there. And some people, that might be just okay. For me, I'm like, I want to get there as fast as I can so that I can see what's next. And the program itself is rewarding every day. So the brain makes reward chemicals, dopamine and serotonin, and some of these even oxytocin that you get from a relationship, communicating with people. These are all the feel-good chemicals that your brain creates. And your brain gives those chemicals to you, just like you could take a drug if you do certain things in a certain way. And when you tell yourself, I set out to do something, and then you actually do it, and you acknowledge that you did it, your brain will give you a reward. I call them Scooby snacks, like you give the cartoon dog something, he's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think finding that place where you respond, getting those rewards is a big part of this, because the same mechanisms that causes somebody to become an addict and go down a bad road, you get that from taking drugs and getting a reward without doing anything.
Correct.
And that's that is like defying a law of physics, right? So you can't defy laws of physics. There's always consequences. And so, like, if you try to defy gravity, you're just going to keep slamming yourself on the ground, because gravity is always going to do it. If you try to, put the wrong chemicals together, they're going to explode or burn or create something else that you don't want, because you didn't follow the laws of physics. And if you get rewards and don't earn them, eventually your body's going to react poorly, and it's going to start craving and wanting these things to where your body falls apart. But when you get those chemicals for the right reasons,
they fuel you.
And they create a tool, because you become capable of advancing and growing. Now you learn that tool. So, I heard something the other day, and it was important, because I always said, we get taught a lot of crap in school that we don't need, right? Like trigonometry. How many people need to know what a sine, cosine, and tangent is? And how many people ever know or care about that in their life? And then somebody came up and said, no, it's not about that. It's about learning how to solve problems that you don't understand. That's what geometry is all about. That's what, learning things that you don't care about is about teaching you to go and endure something that you don't like and finish it. And that is the skill you get out of shitty school. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, I don't know if they do that on purpose or not, but maybe that's a way to get the lemonade out of the lemons for sure. And I think that's one of the great rewards out of your Biohack 40 program. That is a life skill that hopefully, if somebody completes this, you're going to get a gift that maybe you never saw, that's in there, and you can't never lose it.
Exactly. And it's just like you're talking about geometry. I wasn't ever really good at any of the math. I went algebra 2 and still couldn't understand that shit. But one thing I did learn, is like, if you have a bunch of numbers or zeros, you eliminate the zeros, cross them out. Well, it's just like whenever somebody tells me, well, 1,000 push-ups, like that's just bullshit. You don't do that. All right. That can't be done. No way. And I said, okay. Right. I told this one guy, I said, he wrote down, this was at Starbucks. He wrote down I told him, write down on a napkin, 1,000. And he did. He wrote 1,000 down, one comma, and 3 zeros. And I said, cross those 3 zeros out.
All right.
Said, what do you see? He goes, 1. And I said, start right now.
Yeah.
Walked away. And he said, hey, and I turned around and he goes, I could do 100. And I said, why you say that? He goes, because I'm not worried about the zeros. I'm worried about that 1.
Yeah.
And I said, there's your 1,000.
Yep.
So if that can resonate, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about all that. It's all about now. You have the ability to do that, and that choice to do it now. So that all you got to do it is once. So anybody could, do 1 push-up, and if you can do 1, you can handle anything else that comes after that. So that's meant, don't worry about adding zeros and, and all that pressure onto yourself.
Right.
Eliminate that pressure is what the program that 40 does, because not only the 40 push-ups, it keeps your health, your brain in, your brain is a separate organ or separate entity than your heart. They don't need each other to operate, but they need to be in correlation and run together. Like your brain is separate than, your heart is its own workforce, just like your brain is. They don't need to, together. So the structure that of bringing, your heart chakra to your higher chakras is that build in strength, because it takes you a lot of strength and will to let go of all the past and all the stuff, the evil and all the bad that traps you in life, which is your lower chakras. And that's where most of society lives, within, that pain and depression and PTSD. It's all in your lower chakras, the evil and the things that we're told that we can't do. Oh, you'll never make this. You'll never, and that's just somebody seeing that you're doing better than them and they can't do that. So they want to punish you.
Right.
That's pretty much PTSD, is other than trauma. It's emotional pain. And that's where we hold on to, is all those thoughts and everything. So that 40 push-ups makes your cardiovascular disease 96% less chance, plus the plasticity in your brain deteriorating. It will actually produce new growth and strengthen the plasticity in your brain. So that keeps you from disease within the body, the brain, the heart, the body, and everything. You become more homeostasis, and your body can heal itself, because it has more of that power, and frequency is more aligned. So doing the 40 push-ups puts you, that's like the first climb. So I'm going to break it into 3 phases and into, the 1,000, because you're not worried about, we're at 1 right now, which is, the phase 1. So when you go through the first 30 days in the phase 1, that's where you're building 100 reps every day. Just not in one session as a workout, because you're building your workout, Joe. That's what you're doing.
Absolutely.
It's not, it takes me all day to do it, because that's where I started. It took me all day to, to do 1,000. And then once I got to that point, I was able to do larger numbers and feel comfortable with them, because I gave myself, that ability to do it in increments. And I didn't overload my brain. So once you overload your brain, the body will give out. I don't care how strong you are. It's been proven in SEAL training and, military, and tier 1 operators, tell me all the time. So I take all that information and try to use it as like a fuel and a formulation that, like the Iron Man in his chest, he didn't have a heart. Well, now
Right.
it's a freaking, a star that, lights his force up.
Right.
It's all about improving, and once you improve to that level, it becomes different levels that you unwind to where you can achieve pretty much anything. And the body can heal with anything too, So I took an injury that was killing me, was breaking my body down, and nothing was helping, into taking the CBD along with which took care of my physical abilities, but I was still left with the mental abilities, that were, caving in on me. So I had 2 things that I had to work: the heart and the mind. So the heart was being taken care of, which is the body, with the CBD, but I still have the brain overload. So that's where the push-ups and everything came in, is it stopped the brain overload of crushing the body, because it didn't have enough oxygen, to produce, because of all its efforts are going to trying to save the body. So reversing that, it's like the paddles. When your heart stops, you're in the emergency room and he's like, clear. That's exactly what 1,000 push-ups is. Is that in their hands, and when they shock you, your body just that's exactly what you feel like whenever you've done the 1,000 push-ups, is somebody has reset you.
Reset.
Life. Yeah, and it's because of like you said, the dopamine and cortisol levels are balanced. Your serotonin levels are more balanced. When your serotonin levels are low, you're more depressed. because the dopamine is produced as much. And my pineal gland wasn't producing any chemicals, which that is like, you know, the workforce for the body to actually, you know, survive daily, you know, and for you to live. If your pineal gland, that's, you know, your third eye, that's, you know, that's where God is, the connection. So, I mean, it's like I was being robbed from everything. You know, my pineal gland wasn't working, to having to do push-ups, you know, and if I wouldn't have had that will within myself, I wouldn't have pushed myself to be able to have the ability to have this, to be introduced to that this is something that anybody can achieve, not have to go through.
Let's talk about breathing a little bit. I know that the last episode we talked about, we mentioned breathing, and as I'm now at the end of my second week of doing this, I've been noticing when I pay attention to breathing and when I don't, the difference. And we were talking previous to the show starting about, you know, the power of mindfulness and breathing. Why don't you share your thoughts about breathing? Because I think it's such an under I don't want to say appreciated, under acknowledged, underutilized tool. You know, we all breathe, but people breathe shallow all the time, right? And people aren't breathing right. And you know, when you breathe shallow, you get oxygen to you, but you're not getting rid of the toxins. And when you go slower and deeper, and then if you start even doing box breathing and you go in and hold it and breathe in for 4 or 5 and then hold it for 5 and breathe out for 4 or 5 and then hold it for 5, boy, you feel it in your head. It's like taking a hit of a new drug, right?
Oh yes, and that's one of the things that a lot of, pretty much I'd say everyone falls in the category is breathing. You know, if whether you're, whatever the situation is, even just sitting there, you have to breathe. Well, it's a rhythm your body naturally has to do to coexist. So if you restrict that coexistence within the body with, you know, on an H2O level or, you know, oxygenating level, the body's going to break down. And that's where pretty much heart palpitations, you know, come from, is like that, you know, how people breathe. And it's, you know, it creates that rhythm. And that's where the heart palpitations come from, is that type of breathing. Your breathing is out of rhythm. So I see it in the gym. I see it just people walking down the street. You know, I remember one guy at jail, who was an attorney. He came in. This guy was so overweight, and literally all he had to do was walk a flat floor, you know, maybe 200 yards, you know, down a hallway, up an elevator, onto the floor, and the whole time he's breathing like, you know, he's gonna die. So his rhythm is out of, you know, because of the weight. So right. Everybody, even whenever you're working out, people want to hold their breath because, oh, this is going to be heavy, so I'm going to have to, you know, I got to my body up so I can handle it.
With your breath out has anything to do with your muscles pushing, like
right, exactly. You're
not a pressure cooker. Like you don't get extra strength by holding your breath.
No. So in the push-ups, is I try to tell people, when you breathe in, it's actually like when you breathe in, your lungs are expanding. So you're actually, like, if you want to think about it, is you're getting taller. So when you breathe out, you're getting shorter. You know, it pretty much, why I say that, because it puts you in, you know, subconsciously in your mind, the motion of pushing up and down the push-up. So with that breathing, you know, if you breathe in, you've just pushed yourself up to the plank position. So if you breathe out, you're preparing for that pressure that's coming, because that's where the flow of oxygenation goes to the muscle to help resist, the weight, so that it can move through the weight. Is it needs that oxygenation pull for the resistance. So when you're in the push-up position and you go down, you want to breathe in. And then when you push up, you want to push out. Why? Because that sucks all the oxygen out of the muscle, which hardens it, and it gives it that strength. And then you want to release it again so that it can heal and it can still have that, that strength within the muscle and oxygen. So it's down, you want to breathe in and breathe out. Breathe
I
in.
definitely noticed what you're saying when I was doing, just starting to do it, and I do 20 of them without paying attention. And like you said, I find myself holding my breath, but before I get to 20, I got to breathe again. And then when you go to breathe, you screw yourself all up and you forget what number you're on, or you get out of your rhythm, and all of a sudden the breathing gets in the way. And I noticed when I was doing it that way, number one, it just gave the count. It put you in a mindfulness that all you had to do was, if you breathe this way, you only have to think about one thing. And you're just ratcheting that number. There's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, and that's all you got to think about, as long as you're breathing that way. But if you don't, then you're thinking about the number, but then when you breathe out, you now have to breathe in, and you're not
forgetting the
think
number
about breathing, right?
Yeah, you're forgetting the number.
Yeah, exactly. Then all of a sudden your brain, see, people don't realize that. People think they can multitask in their brains, but you can't.
No.
Your brain can only think of one thing at a time. And that's why when somebody's talking to you and then something else happens, you got to let go of one. You can't talk to 2 people at once. You can't do it. Nobody can.
One thought becomes multi-thought.
Yeah, and what happens, your brain will just go back and forth real quick, but it can't split. You can't split your brain.
No.
And so when you're breathing and you have to start thinking about breathing, then it will let go of that other thing, and you'll forget that thought even for a second. Then you're like, crap. Then you'll get back into sync. But definitely I noticed the difference, and as I'm getting progressively into different layers of this, I'm sure I'm going to notice the difference in the strength part of it. Awareness is unfolding right now, and it's just being aware of the mindfulness of this. And I think anything that gives you mindfulness training is in and of itself a powerful tool. Like, we're so distracted in our lives, and we're constantly, this little thing keeps making noises, and we want to see what it has to say. And then there's a colorful this and a colorful that, and a message and this and that and every little thing. And I got to run real quick. I turned out my battery is going to go to sleep unless I plug it in. I got to run and grab a charger.
That's fine.
Go, and you can keep going with the thought.
Yeah, and that's another thing is covering it. The breathing is, when I first started to do it, it was hard because like Joe said, is your mind can't think about more than one thing at a time. So how did I have to change that? So where I'm breathing at the right rhythm, but I'm also keeping track of my numbers, is I had to think of one thing. So the most important thing that I was trying to train myself to think was the breathing. So I wanted to focus on the breathing as numbers instead of the numbers as breathing, if that makes any sense. So if I would start small too, instead of doing, I would still do my 20 push-ups, as a set, but I would only breathe and think about 5. So my breathing, I breathe in 1, 2. See, it's hard because you're off rhythm. You can't breathe and say this, and say the number at the same time. There's a delay. So it's the same thing in the brain and how it's oxygenation. So to get that oxygenation flowing with the brain, it has to be within rhythm. So you think of the breathing first and forget the numbers. Why? Because the body already knows that response level when it's going to hit 20. So it's like a military veteran, he racks a 30-round magazine, clears the chamber, and he pulls the trigger, and he's just cyclic rate until there's no bullets. Well, as you do that so many times, you can remember to know that, man, I'm at 29, 30. I got to drop the clip, put another one in just by the sound. We're like that. How do you do that?
Yeah,
it's the breathing. You're within that breathing, and it puts you into that zone to where nothing else, it flows, matters. You can't hear nothing. It's just you're grinding that thought. and purity. So whenever that aligns back, then you can it can think about other things. Why? Because we're sitting here breathing, but the brain still has to think about everything we want to say right now and make it in sound intelligence so people can understand it. That's all in a millisecond blink that your mind and body is doing that. So whenever, that's where you want with trauma is you want that back realignment. So it starts with your breathing. It starts with low numbers. It starts with breathing. So when you're in and that's within the first phase is teaching the right rhythm to handle the increments. And you're starting with the 1. Where did that 1 come? You came, it's at 100 now, 100. Where's 1,000? 1 more 0.
Right.
Then it's only 1 more. See that number 1, how important it is to just you accountable just once? Is it creates all that multi-thinking. Just that 1 push-up. Well, it has to be within that right rhythm, because if it's like a golf shot, you could suck like me trying to play Tiger Woods and get that hole-in-one, and I'll never do it. But I hit that 1 shot and it's just godlike, and it was just right in the hole, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that can be done every single day, every single every millisecond of every breath. It's just you're not within tune on that level. Well, once you start to get to that level to where you can flow at your level of genius, that's where things align and you can achieve the higher numbers. So keeping them real low, think small and breathe small, and that will build to the multi-levels. So your breathing rhythm in and out, breathe in, out, breathe in, out. That will introduce the larger numbers to where, because now I don't even think about the breathing. Okay, I got to get down in the position, and now I got to do 20 push-ups. So I'm gonna breathe and I'm gonna count. It's not gonna work that way. Now, by breaking it down to, okay, I'm just gonna focus on breathing. It's gonna turn into focusing on breathing 20 times.
Right.
So you're not counting 20 push-ups. So it takes it. The mind takes it out of the body as we're doing push-ups. We're doing everyday life through the push-up, because it takes you to push you to get up in life. So that's the same mentality, you know, of combating the silent ghost. You know, that's the silent ghost that's in everybody, that disbelief that we put on ourselves. You know, oh, well, I can't say this because if somebody knows, then they may think I'm crazy. I don't give a shit. You know, come here, you call me crazy, you get crazy with me, because we want to be crazy together.
all the good people in life are a little bit crazy anyway. So that's
owning you're crazy. It makes, you know, it's like whenever I did talk therapy, you know, I had a lieutenant colonel. I'll never forget him. Lieutenant Colonel, I love that guy. He told me that, what was the last thing you said right now, Joe?
Oh, it said all the good people in life are crazy.
Yeah, that's what
we're all, I mean, you got to be a little crazy. The opposite of crazy to me is boring.
Yeah, he said that everyone is crazy. It's owning up to your craziness that makes you great.
Right.
And one thing he told me is, like, whatever you're dealing with inside your mind, own it, give it a name, give it a title. You know, that's what he told me. He said, but he told me for some reason, give it a face.
All right.
If it was the level of mentality I was at, why he told me just, you know, that, but I gave it a face. You know, everything that was bothering me in my mind, all my emotions, like, I can't do this, I'm tired of this, I want to hurt this person, you know, I gave it the Hulk. So I did what he said. I said, all right, because that's how I feel inside. That's what really felt like, really wanted to come out of me, was the Hulk, you know? And whenever I started doing that, I started not paying attention to it.
All right.
Yeah, and that's where it developed into the program, is I took that Hulk and I faced him. And I faced him on my terms as I pushed through all the pain.
Stop here, because I think that's a good stopping point. We've done it again. We've gone through another 30-minute session. but there's 2 points that I wanted to get into. So I think next time we'll start off with where you left off, with facing your challenge, putting a name on it, putting a face to it, identifying. That's a technique that people use in beating diseases, cancers and things like that. They say,
Yeah.
give it a face, give it a name, give it something to beat and quantify it. And I wanted to also bring up one other point is, I think underneath all of this is the drive, the motivating factor, the prime directive. What is causing us to do this, right? And it's a tool that says whatever it is I put my energy at, I can get. And I think it's like you've gotten your 1,000, you've gotten it many, many times, but because you wanted it, and once you figured out that you wanted it, you were able to get it. Then you learned that you could get other people to get it and get the value of it. And so now you've been the prime mover of other people to get them to realize, number one, that this is something that's worth getting. And then number two, giving them the tools to get it. Where we put our thoughts, where we put our mind, where we choose to act and take that first move, make that first push-up, that's where we accomplish. Good or bad, that's what we accomplish. So the same very people that are thinking about dark things and always grumbling and bitching and complaining about everything, they're creating those things. And they always have stuff to complain about because they keep manifesting what they're talking about. Those very same people that say, I'm just going to stay focused. I don't get to go. I'm not going to go to the bar today and go hang out and go try to hook up with some people. I'm going to stay on my game right now. I'm in the middle of something that I want to complete. Those are the ones that get that done. And so this is a tool, I think, that sharpens that, because you're not going to get there unless you do it. Like, nobody's going to do this for you. That this 1,000 in a day is a thing. It's a prize to me. It's a prize that I'm going to get, but I'm only going to get it because I want it, and I'm willing to do what it takes to get it. It's not a prize that somebody can just hand to me. I can't cheat my way through it. There's no way to fake it. I'm either going to do it or I won't. And when I do it, I get the prize. And the only way I'm going to get it is if I want it bad enough, and I'm willing to do that. And I think that's another piece of this puzzle, is teaching people to want something. I think we got so many apathetic, lazy ass people out there today, and they don't have anything that they want. And there's people that I know and love, and I ask them, I go, well, what is it that you want? You're bumbling your way through life and complaining about things all the time. I'm like, what do you want? And they struggle to think of that. I go, man, give me something that I want. Man, boom, boom, boom. I know what I want.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Keep going.
Exactly. And I'm always busy, and I generally am in a good mood. So that's a part of it. So Richard, we've gone way over the line today, but this was awesome. I really, these conversations are getting are going deeper into this one topic, and I never would have thought there'd be so much to talk about, talking about 1,000 push-ups, but everything that we have, all these conversations that we've had have been hinged on this one common denominator. So I'm going to give you the parting shot as usual, and we'll jump back into it very soon for the next one.
Yes, sir. We want everybody. We're actually going to break down, and we're creating right now a training manual, a 90-day training manual. So 3 phases. First month, second month, third month for the program, so that everyone can utilize it. You won't have any questions. Everything will be covered and break down for you, so that you have a battle plan of something that can actually work for you and you can apply to your everyday life. So stay tuned. We're going to keep covering the breakdown on getting your rhythm and your breathing, slowly get you back on track, just like a doctor would if you came to him and you needed healed. He's going to talk to you first. He's going to figure out where you are emotionally with what's going on with you, and take you from there. So we're going to break you down in the program so that you can actually do that for yourself later in your life. and give you the building tools that, for success, mentally and physically. So we're excited. We're going to go do our workout. We're even more excited because, Joe and what he's doing and where he's at with it and his mindset and where he's taking it. It's just, that's what it's about, interaction and keeping it at that level to where we can interact and we can heal together. So you need anything, just reach out at I Wish I Had CBD or Yellow Footprint Fitness, and have a great day.
Awesome. Well, thank you, folks. And this has been another edition of the Healthy Living Podcast, brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. And we'll see you next time.
Have a good